The floor was cold. Soah had stopped feeling it 20 minutes ago. She had stopped feeling most things. The fluorescent light above her buzzed faintly, and the corridor was empty, and her phone was still warm in her hand from the call that had ended without answers. She stared at nothing. Then she heard footsteps. She looked up. Lim Chaywan was walking toward her down the corridor. No coat, no bag. Like she had left wherever she was the moment she heard and came without stopping to prepare. Her chin-length hair was slightly out of place, and her eyes were fixed on Soah with an expression that had nothing calculated in it. Just her. Soah was on her feet before she made the decision to stand. She crossed the distance between them in 4 steps and walked straight into Chaywan's arms and held on. Chaywan held her back. Both arms, and firm and immediate and real. Soah pressed her face into her shoulder and didn't cry. She was past crying. She just stood there and breathed and let herself be held by the one person who had shown up. She pulled back after a long moment. "Why are you here?" she asked. Her voice came out rough. "The hearing is tomorrow. The petition, your career, is not what I'm thinking about right now," Chaywan said. "The others are thinking about exactly that." Chaywan's voice was gentle but direct. "Their phones are full of lawyers and board members and damage control. That's where they are." She looked at Soah steadily. "I'm here." Soah looked at her. Something in her chest pulled tight and released at the same time. She reached for her phone, called Mirai, voicemail. She called Seulgi, voicemail. She lowered the phone slowly. The silence from both of them sat in her stomach like something she had swallowed wrong. She had signed a contract with 3 women. Her mother was 20 feet away behind a closed door and couldn't look at her, and 2 of the 3 people she had bound herself to weren't picking up. "They're busy," she said, mostly to herself. Chaywan didn't respond to that. She just watched her with those quiet, unreadable eyes. "Come sit down," she said. They sat in 2 chairs at the end of the corridor. The hospital moved around them, nurses, distant announcements, the soft rhythm of machines, and Chaywan sat close enough that their shoulders touched. "There's a way out of this," Chaywan said. Soah looked at her. "What do you mean?" "The contract." Chaywan kept her voice low and even. "If we annul it now, cleanly, before the hearing, it changes the narrative. You become a student who was manipulated and then walked away. The board loses its case. The journalist loses the story." Soah was quiet. "And your mother," Chaywan continued, "doesn't have to stay in this city. I can relocate both of you. New facility, better care, somewhere away from all of this." She paused. "Fully funded, no conditions." "No conditions?" Soah said. Chaywan looked at her directly. "One condition. You trust me, completely. You stop trying to manage this alone and you let me handle it." Soah looked down at her hands. The same hands that had held a pen over a contract 3 days ago and signed without fully understanding what she was signing into. She thought about her mother's face, about voicemail, about sitting on a cold floor with nowhere left to go. She looked up at Chaywan. "Okay," she said. Chaywan nodded once. Something moved behind her eyes, too fast to read. On the other hand, the disciplinary committee room smelled like old paper and authority. Kang Mirai sat on one side of the long table with her hands folded and her expression giving nothing away. Oh Seulgi sat beside her, jaw tight, one leg bouncing under the table until Mirai placed a hand on her knee without looking at her, and it stopped. The chancellor sat at the head of the table and looked at both of them like they were a problem she had been waiting to solve for a long time. "Where is Professor Lim?" Seulgi said. The chancellor didn't blink. "Professor Lim is not your concern right now. You are." "She should be here," Seulgi said. "She's part of this. Professor Lim's situation is being handled separately." The chancellor folded her hands. "What you should be focused on is the fact that both of your positions at this university are being terminated effective immediately." Mirai didn't move. Silgi's jaw tightened. On what grounds? Conduct unbecoming of faculty, exploitation of a student, reputational damage to this institution. The chancellor slid 2 envelopes across the table. Your termination letters. Security will escort you out by end of day. Silgi pushed her chair back. This is final, the chancellor said. The notice went public at 4 p.m. Mirai saw it on her phone in the parking lot. She read it twice. Then she read it a 3rd time because something about it didn't sit right, and she needed to confirm what she was seeing. The notice named 2 professors, her name, Silgi's name. Lim Chaywan's name was not there. Han Soah's name was not there. Silgi appeared at her shoulder and read it over her arm. She went very still. That's, Silgi started. I know, Mirai said. How is she not? I know. Mirai's voice was quiet, precise. She lowered the phone slowly and looked at nothing for a long moment. Then she turned her head and looked at Silgi. She said one word. Chaywan. Silgi looked at her, and the confusion on her face moved, shifted, and became something else entirely. The specific horror of a truth that had been standing behind you the whole time. 5 days of silence is loud in a way nobody warns you about. Mirai sat at her kitchen table on the 5th morning with her phone face up and her coffee untouched and counted the unanswered calls. 17 to Soah, 9 to Chaywan, every single one hitting voicemail like a wall that had been built specifically to keep her out. Silgi had stopped counting after day 2. They found out about Soah on day 3. A single line in the university student record system that Mirai still had access to through a shared administrative login that nobody had thought to revoke yet. Soah had voluntarily withdrawn from school, effective immediately, no forwarding contact, no reason given, voluntary. Mirai read the word 4 times. She called Seulgi. She left, she said the moment Seulgi picked up. Seulgi was quiet for a long moment. She withdrew? Voluntarily. Another silence, longer this time. Chaywan convinced her. Yes. Where is she? I don't know. Silgi exhaled. It was the kind of exhale that had a lot of other sounds inside it. And Chaywan? Mirai looked at her screen. Transferred. Another university. No name listed. Family connections processed it in less than 48 hours. Of course they did, Silgi said quietly. Then, I want to find her. I know. Mirai. I know, Silgi. Chaywan agreed to meet on day 5. A coffee shop 3 blocks from the university. Neutral. Public. She was already sitting when they arrived. Straight, chin-length hair perfect, navy blouse pressed, hands wrapped around a cup like she had been there long enough to be comfortable. Like she had nothing to be afraid of. Mirai sat down across from her. Seulgi pulled out the chair beside Mirai and sat with her arms crossed and her jaw set, and her eyes fixed on Chaywan with an expression that had moved beyond anger into something colder and more precise. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Mirai put her phone on the table. The dismissal notice was on the screen. 2 names, not 3. Chaywan looked at it, then looked up. The forum post, Mirai said. The contract leak. The journalist. She kept her voice even. The dismissal notice that somehow forgot your name. Chaywan said nothing. You used your family connections to transfer out before the hearing, Silgi said. Clean record, no consequences. New university. She leaned forward. Well, we lost everything. Chaywan looked at her, and then she smiled. It was small, quiet. And it was the most frightening thing Mirai had ever seen on a human face, because it was completely unbothered. You broke under pressure, Chaywan said. Both of you. The moment it got difficult, you ran to lawyers and board members and damage control. She tilted her head slightly. I simply planned better. Silgi's chair scraped back. Mirai put a hand on her arm. Why? Mirai said. Just that. One word. Chaywan looked at her for a long moment. The smile faded. What replaced it was worse. something raw and honest and terrible in its honesty. "It started when I found out you both liked her," she said. "I told myself it was fine, that I could manage it, that 3 people liking the same girl was something adults could navigate." Her fingers tightened around her cup. "I believed that for a while." "Chaywan, I watched you plan a life with her," she said. Her voice stayed level, but something underneath it was not level at all. "I watched you furnish that apartment, choose her room, cook for her, touch her." Her jaw tightened. "I watched you be intimate with her, and I sat there and I told myself to breathe, and I couldn't." She set her cup down. "I couldn't breathe, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit in the same room and watch 2 people I knew put their hands on someone I had been watching for 3 months before either of you ever noticed she existed." The table was very quiet. "So you destroyed us," Selgi said. "I removed the competition," Chaywan said simply. Selgi laughed. "It came out wrong, broken at the edges. You removed our careers, our reputations. You used a student's sick mother as a weapon. You isolated a girl who had nobody and handed her your version of safety while making sure she had nowhere else to go." Her voice cracked on the last word. "That's not love, Chaywan. That's a cage." Chaywan stood up. She smoothed her blouse, picked up her bag, and looked at both of them with those quiet, unreadable eyes one last time. "Forget her," she said. "Both of you, move forward. Build something new." She paused. "You will never see Soah again. She is with me now. She chose to rely on me." Something moved across her face, not guilt, something older and more settled than guilt. "And she will keep choosing me because I will make sure she has no reason not to." She walked out. The door closed behind her. Selgi pressed both hands flat on the table and dropped her head between her shoulders and breathed. Mireille picked up her phone, called Soah, voicemail, called again, voicemail. She set the phone down and looked at it for a long time. Then she looked at Selgi. Selgi lifted her head and looked back. 2 women who had lost their jobs, their reputations, and the same girl, sitting across from each other in a coffee shop that smelled like espresso, and everything they hadn't said fast enough. "I don't care," Selgi said. "Neither do I," Mireille said. "Whatever it takes." Whatever it takes. They didn't shake hands. They didn't make speeches. They just looked at each other across the small table and understood completely. Somewhere out there, Soah was with a woman who had built her a beautiful cage and called it safety. And they were going to find her. 1 day later. She wasn't waiting. That was what Soah told herself as her eyes moved to the airport entrance for the 11th time in 20 minutes. She wasn't waiting. She was just sitting. Her bag was on her lap. Her mother's wheelchair was beside her, and the departure board above them counted down to a flight that was going to take her somewhere she had never been and away from everything she had ever known. She wasn't waiting. Her phone screen stayed dark. Every person who walked through the entrance doors sent a jolt through her chest. A tall woman in a gray coat, not Mireille. A woman with wavy dark hair moving fast through the crowd, not Selgi. A stranger, another stranger, another. She looked down at her phone. No calls, no messages, nothing. She had sent 1 message to each of them yesterday. Not begging, just 1 line each. Something that left the door open without saying that was what she was doing. Neither of them had responded. Her mother shifted in the wheelchair beside her. She hadn't said much since the hospital. They were still finding their way back to each other. Slowly, carefully, like 2 people crossing a floor they weren't sure would hold. But she had agreed to come. That was something. Soah looked at the entrance 1 last time. Nobody. She picked up her phone, looked at the 2 unanswered messages. Then she opened them and deleted both of them and put her phone in her bag. Chaywan had told her they accepted the annulment without a single word of protest. No calls to the lawyer, no objection filed, nothing, just silence. The same silence that was sitting in her bag right now where their responses should have been. She had signed a contract with 3 women who said they liked her. Two of them had let her go like she was a lease they were ready to be done with. She straightened her back. Fine, she was going to focus on herself, repair what was broken with her mother, build something real with someone who had actually shown up. Chaywan had chosen her when the whole world was turning away. That meant something. That had to mean something. She was done waiting for people who weren't coming. Chaywan appeared beside her 10 minutes before boarding. She had a coffee in each hand, and a calm in her expression that Soah had decided to call safety instead of whatever else it might be. She handed Soah the cup, checked their boarding passes, asked Soah's mother if she needed anything in a voice that was gentle and patient. Soah watched her and felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. "Ready?" Chaywan asked. Soah looked at the entrance one final time. Doors. Strangers. Nobody. "Yes," she said. The plane was half full. Soah sat by the window with her mother in the aisle seat and Chaywan between them, which meant Chaywan was beside Soah, close enough that their arms touched on the shared armrest. Her mother had fallen asleep before takeoff. The cabin lights dimmed. The city disappeared beneath the clouds. Chaywan leaned over and adjusted the blanket across Soah's lap without being asked. Her hand lingered at Soah's knee for a moment. "Stop thinking about them," she said quietly. Soah looked at her. "I'm not." Chaywan looked back with those calm, knowing eyes. "You've checked the entrance 17 times since we sat down." Soah said nothing, and Chaywan reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind Soah's ear. Her fingers traced the line of her jaw slowly, deliberately, the way she always touched her, like she had all the time in the world, and Soah was the only thing in it worth being patient for. "They let you go," Chaywan said softly. "I didn't." Soah felt her chest tighten. Chaywan leaned in and kissed her. It was slow, deliberate, the kind of kiss that didn't ask permission because it had already decided. Her hand stayed at Soah's jaw, and she kissed her like she was making a point and a promise at the same time. And Soah's hand came up and gripped the front of her blouse, and she kissed her back because she was tired, and she was hurt, and Chaywan was here, and sometimes here was the only thing that mattered. When they pulled apart, Chaywan pressed her forehead against Soah's and closed her eyes. "Just us," she whispered. "From here." 3 rows back, 2 women sat very still. Mirai had her cap pulled low. Her hands were folded in her lap and her knuckles were pale, and she was looking at the back of Soah's seat with an expression that didn't move. Beside her, Seolgi had her face turned toward the window. Her jaw was working. Her reflection in the dark glass looked like someone swallowing something that wouldn't go down. Neither of them spoke. The plane cut through the clouds and the city was gone, and somewhere above the ocean all 5 of them breathed the same recycled air, and none of them slept. The airport on the other side was loud and wide and full of unfamiliar signs. Soah walked beside Chaywan through the arrivals gate with her mother's wheelchair handle in both hands, eyes adjusting to the new light, the new language layered beneath the English announcements overhead. "I'll get the bags," Chaywan said. "Stay here." Soah nodded. She turned to her mother. "I'll be right back. I need to use the restroom." Her mother nodded without looking at her. Soah followed the signs down a side corridor. The crowd thinned. Her footsteps echoed. 2 hands came from nowhere. One caught her left arm, one caught her right. She was pulled sideways into a narrow corridor alcove before she could make a sound, and she spun around with her heart in her throat, ready to scream, and stopped. Mirai. Cap pulled low, jaw tight, eyes burning. Seolgi. Hair hidden, chest heaving, eyes already wet. Soah stared at them. Her whole face broke open. Soah couldn't breathe. Not because of the hands on her arms or the narrow corridor or the shock of 2 faces she hadn't seen in 5 days appearing from nowhere. She couldn't breathe because of the way they were looking at her. Like she was something they had been running toward across an ocean and had only just reached. She had prepared herself for a lot of things. She had not prepared for this. "Listen to me," Mirai said. Her voice was low and controlled, but her hands on Soah's arms were not controlled at all. They were gripping her like letting go was something she had already decided not to do. Everything she told you was constructed. The annulment papers. She filed them without telling us. We found out after they were already processed. She told me you agreed, Soah said. We never agreed to anything. Silgi stepped closer. Her eyes were red at the edges, and she wasn't trying to hide it. She handled our lawyers. Her voice cracked slightly. Soah looked at her. She blocked your calls, Mirai said. On our phones, we called you every day. Don't, Soah said. 17 times, Mirai said. Count them. They're still in my call log. Soah's jaw tightened. She wanted to pull away. She wanted to be done with all of it, with the hoping and the waiting and the specific humiliation of caring about people who hadn't come. But they were here. They had followed her across an ocean. Silgi reached up and touched her face, both hands cupping her jaw the way she always did, without asking, without hesitating, like it was something that had always belonged to her. We lost our jobs, she said quietly. Our reputations, everything. And the first thing we did when Chaywan walked away from that table was try to call you. Her thumb traced Soah's cheekbone. We didn't come here for closure. We came here because we are not done. Soah's eyes burned. Mirai stepped in from the other side. She didn't speak. She just put one hand on the back of Soah's neck and pressed her lips to her forehead, firm, slow, deliberate, and held them there for a long moment, like a promise being made against her skin. Silgi kissed her next, soft and desperate and honest in a way that had no performance in it. Just 5 days of silence, and an ocean, and everything she hadn't been able to say through voicemail. Soah gripped the front of Silgi's jacket. She felt it, all of it, cracking through the wall she had spent 5 days building. She felt exactly how much she had missed them, and exactly how much that missing had cost her to keep quiet, and the feeling was enormous and terrifying, and Chaywan's voice. They accepted the annulment without a fight. They chose their careers. You will never see them again. Except here they were. Soah pulled back. She stepped away from both of them and pressed herself against the corridor wall and looked at them with everything she felt and everything she refused to feel, fighting openly on her face. My calls went to voicemail, she said. Soah. Every single time I called. For 5 days. Her voice rose slightly. I sat on that hospital floor and I needed you, and you went to voicemail, both of you. And then the annulment went through and neither of you said a word. She shook her head. Chaywan was there. She was the only one who showed up. Because she planned it that way, Mirai said. That's convenient, Soah said. Blaming her for everything now that it's too late. It's not too late, Silgi said. I'm on a trip with her. My mother is out there right now. Soah grabbed her bag. You followed me across an ocean and cornered me in an airport corridor. Do you understand how that looks? We didn't know what else to do, Silgi said. Go home, Soah said. Both of you, please. She walked out before either of them could reach her. Chaywan was exactly where she said she would be, standing beside Soah's mother with both their bags at her feet, her phone in her hand, her expression patient and composed. She looked up the moment Soah appeared and something moved across her face, quick, precise, gone before it fully formed. Everything okay? She asked. Fine, Soah said. I'm fine. Chaywan looked at her for a moment longer than necessary. Then she nodded and reached over and adjusted the strap of Soah's bag on her shoulder. The car is waiting, she said. Soah nodded. She gripped her phone in her pocket and followed. The car was cool and quiet. Her mother sat in the front. Soah sat behind her and stared at the unfamiliar city moving past the window and told herself she had made the right choice. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message. We're blocked on your phone, so we are texting from a new phone. We're not asking you to believe us tonight. Just meet us tomorrow, 1 hour, that's all. Soah stared at the screen. She opened her contacts, went to blocked numbers, 2 names. Kang Mirai. Oh, Solgi. She looked at them for a long time. Her finger hovered over the screen. She had never blocked anyone in her life. She barely knew how. She scrolled to the date the block was added. 5 days ago, the day she agreed to rely on Chaywan completely. She lowered her phone slowly and looked up. Chaywan was watching her from the seat beside her in the reflection of the dark window. Calm, patient, composed. Soah looked at that calmness and felt something she had never felt in Chaywan's presence before. Cold. The end. Soah found 2 names in her blocked contacts, names she never put there, and the woman sitting beside her was still smiling. Who do you trust when the person who saved you is the one who set the trap? Part 3 is coming, and nothing will be the same. Like this video. Comment who you think Soah should choose. And subscribe so Part 3 finds you first.